welcome to the second programme in our new chess series, which takes a look at the 12 best games I think were ever played. I'm joined again by chess enthusiast Donald Woods, who will be presenting the moves from this week's game in a few moments. It takes us to New York in 1857, where the world's best players had gathered for the first American Chess Congress. Apart from the prestige and the prize fund, they were competing for this imposing silverware. It was the first opportunity to assess the credentials of an amazing prodigy, Paul Morphy, who had burst onto the chess scene at the age of 12 in his hometown of New Orleans. He was born here in a quiet suburb and played his early games at the New Orleans Chess and Checkers Club, including a famous victory against the established European master Johann Löwenthal. Now aged 20, he faced the best in the world, and he beat them, reaching the final here against German master Louis Paulsen. By now, Morphy was undoubtedly a star, and there followed a trailblazing tour of London and Paris, in which he stormed through European chess, whilst delighting spectators with his casual virtuoso play at blindfold chess, facing up to 8 opponents at a time, without sight of the board. In dazzling individual matches, Johann Löwenthal, a Hungarian grandmaster, was defeated again, and Daniel Harwitz, also a Hungarian. Adolf Anderssen, the champion of London 1851, was also dramatically dispatched, the American winning an astounding 7 out of their 11 games. His only disappointment was his failure to engage Howard Staunton, who was still the world's most famous player, if not the strongest. Had the world champion title then existed, Morphy would surely have been the holder. Morphy's exploits were exuberantly feted in Europe and North America. In Paris, a bust was unveiled, and dinners and presentations greeted his return home to the States in 1859, more or less the equivalent of a modern ticker-tape welcome. Yet in a curious parallel to Bobby Fischer's withdrawal from public competition after his World Championship victory in 1972, Paul Morphy also chose to retire from serious combat. After his European tour, Morphy never again played against first-class opponents and confined himself to simultaneous displays or casual games with amateurs, to whom he gave heavy odds. The early to mid-19th century had witnessed the development of a core of players and journalists who earned their living from chess activities. But Morphy recoiled from this and the suggestion that chess was a profession. He spent the rest of his life here, where he died in increasing seclusion. His attempts to set up a legal practice failed, and the American Civil War damaged the personal fortunes of his family. He died in 1884 after suffering a stroke. As with Bobby Fischer, Morphy's vanishing act at the height of his powers created a myth of superhuman power in the public mind. He played a mere 75 competitive games, but the belief persists that he may have been the greatest genius chess has ever had. In terms of chess practice, Morphy's contribution was indeed considerable. He was not only well versed in the theory of the day, he was amazingly rapid and accurate in his play. His coruscating technique was ingenious and resourceful. Never blundering, he was also blessed with outstanding understanding of the endgame. We are going to look at that final game against Paulsen in the First American Congress. Louis Paulsen was a distinguished tournament player in the 1860s and 1870s, who had a reputation for a prodigious memory on the chessboard, but was absent-minded and forgetful away from it. This wasn't the result of any excess. He was abstemious in the extreme, drinking only water. No tea, coffee, or hard liquor passed his lips. He never smoked. He invented the dragon variation of the Sicilian defense, and his system has become deservedly popular in modern times. He died from the complications of diabetes in 1891. Well, Donald, was Morphy one of the people you studied when you were a young chess enthusiast?
Yes, one of the big three from the New World. It's always interested me that, we think of chess as being an ancient game from the old world, but you had these brilliant men like Morphy, Capablanca, Bobby Fischer, all coming from the New World.
And Pillsbury as well.
Pillsbury.
Yes. Well, Morphy is one of these tragic cases in chess, a man who was clearly a genius, but never quite fulfilled his potential.
Yes.
So let's take a look at the game, with Louis Paulsen playing white and Paul Morphy playing black. And Paulsen, as was the custom in those days, played the pawn to e4. And Morphy played pawn to e5. And this is exactly what one would expect from Morphy. Morphy was an adherent of what's called the open game, where the pieces come out quickly, are developed, classical simple moves. He never really tried anything fussy or pretentious in the opening. And Paulsen was a scientific player, no king's gambit for him. He just developed his knight in the normal way, attacking the black pawn on e5. And Morphy defended the pawn, also bringing out a piece.
Ray, do you find similarities between the style of Morphy and, say, Bobby Fischer? The sort of beautiful simplicity seems to be.
Yes, I think that's an excellent point. And I remember a few years ago seeing a series of videotapes that Bobby Fischer made in Yugoslavia in the late 1960s. And it was Bobby Fischer demonstrating games to the public in Belgrade. And interestingly, he'd chosen a whole series of Morphy games to demonstrate. Games that people had almost forgotten or regarded as too simple to be.
So it's not a fanciful notion. There was
not at all. No, Fischer studied Morphy, and I think that one of his often stated opinions was that if Morphy were able to come back, reincarnate himself with modern knowledge and technique, he would have been able to beat everybody nowadays. And you're quite right about that. And Paulsen developed a knight, not the sharpest move. Nowadays, people tend to play the Roy Lopez with bishop b5. And Morphy brought out his knight. This is the four knights game. And it's really quite an unpretentious opening. But at least White is getting his pieces out. And Paulsen played this. And now, modern theory tends to recommend the move, this bishop coming to b4. And in modern chess, it's usually regarded as a success if, between two players of strong grandmaster level, the black player can get equality and make a draw, because the force of the white initiative is so great. And this move, bishop b4, is really designed to maintain the balance and get a draw. But Morphy, in those days, wasn't interested in a draw at all. Let's put the bishop back where it came from. And what he played was the much sharper move, bishop to c5. And in some senses, this is rather dubious. It exposes black to all sorts of dangers. And in fact, the way Paulsen plays now is not at all bad. He finds a very surprising move, one that most people wouldn't play, but one that is actually rather dangerous for black. He first castled, brought his king into safety, and black did the same. And then Paulsen played this rather surprising move. Knight takes the pawn on the e5. Now, we should pause for a minute and try and work out what's going on here, because this is a complicated attacking notion. And what Paulsen had in mind was that if black takes back, which is the most natural move, white plays this move. And he's forking the black knight on e5 and the black bishop on c5. And also white's freeing his game, getting a good development. And this fork, the pawn on d4, automatically regains the lost material. And this would give white an excellent position. So we're already seeing here a degree of extreme sophistication in Paulsen's opening play. But he's come up already with what might be termed the first brilliant idea of the game. Now, Morphy loved the initiative, and he's having none of that.
He's not going to fall for that.
He's not going to fall for that, no. It's called the fork trick, by the way, this little combination. It's called the fork trick. And what Morphy does is, if he puts the rook here, bringing the piece into active play, which is typical of Morphy's fluid style. And now the knight on e5, the white knight on e5 really is attacked. And it's got to make a decision. It's either got to withdraw, or he has to capture the black knight on c6. And if the knight comes back, for example, to this square, black can simply recapture his pawn on e4 with no problems. So Paulsen, who's obviously himself trying to win this game as white, evolves a more complicated procedure, and one that he hopes is going to give him the advantage, by wrecking the black pawn structure. And what he does is, he takes off here. And Morphy takes back.
See, I guess 9 out of 10 average club hackers would have taken at the other pawn.
Yes, that's interesting. Let's put the knight back for a minute. Yes, many people, as Donald quite rightly said, would have taken back this way, capturing, as is known, towards the centre. And this gives black a more compact pawn structure. But what Morphy wants to do, by taking the other way, which he does, is he wants to free the position for his own pieces to come out. See, by taking with the d pawn, the black bishop on c8 already has a free path.
Right.
And the queen on d8 gets the whole of the d file on which to operate.
Yeah, all opened up.
That's right. And Morphy was always concerned with the fluidity of his pieces, with mobilization, with quick development. And time again in these games from the mid-19th century, you see Morphy bowling over an opponent, just destroying him completely, because the opposition is neglecting the development of his pieces. And Paulsen moved back the attack bishop, and Morphy struck out again, still fiercely seeking the initiative. And this bishop's got to move once more, and there's really no point trying to cling to the extra pawn on the e4 square. I mean, the only way white could do that would be by putting the bishop on this square here, but then the white position is completely congested, and this would be taking a dreadful risk. So Paulsen quite sensibly put his bishop back onto e2.
Let the pawn go.
That's right, he let the pawn go. And what he's relying on is the fact that after he's given back the extra material, that the black pawns on the left-hand side of the board, on the queen's wing, have been compromised. They've been doubled. There are two pawns on c6 and c7. They become weaknesses. And Paulsen's hoping that he can then free his position, and that these weaknesses will tell against black in the later course of the game. Morphy took back his pawn, and Paulsen eliminated that dangerous knight. And Morphy took back once more. Rook takes e4. And Paulsen hit the rook. And of course Morphy's got no choice now. He has to put the rook back on the e6 square. First of all, the rook's attack has got to move, and secondly, he wants to defend his own pawn on c6, which otherwise the bishop would snap off. And now Paulsen makes the first of a series of small mistakes. What he should do now is to get his bishop out. He should play a move like d3, and then perhaps bring the bishop out to d2 square, and he should try to complete his development. But he didn't do that. He conceived a more ambitious plan, but ultimately one that's much more dangerous. And what he did was to play c3. Now, I imagine you can see what he's trying to do, Donald.
No.
Well,
because frankly, I would have played the other move.
The other move, yeah. Well, what he's trying to do is to push the move d4, which just frees his position completely. He's trying to break out at one fell swoop, and this is the natural preparatory move for it. But what he underestimated or overlooked was Morphy's tremendous reply, which to us seems quite natural, but to them, to the players in the 19th century who didn't really appreciate the theory of weak squares and so on, this must have come a bit of a thunderclap. Move queen d3. And suddenly...
Makes you gulp when that sort of thing happens to you.
Yeah. Oh dear, where did that come from? Suddenly this enormously powerful piece, the queen, is right in the guts of the white position. And it's very difficult to shift it, because the black rook controlling the e-file means that white can't get his bishop from f3 back to e2 to chase it away. So this is now a monster sitting in white's vitals. Very hard to remove the queen.
And we're on move number...
This is move number 12 when we play queen d3. So even just after 12 moves, white is already rather thrashing around. And what he tries now is a diversion on the extreme left flank. He plays b4, chasing the bishop, which just drops back to b6. And now move 14, he plays this move. And what do you think about that, Donald? Have you got any alternative ideas there? Let's go back to the position before white plays this. Would you have played a4, or can you think of something else?
I wouldn't have played a4, but
I think a move I would have considered here, and given the defensive nature of White's position, is perhaps to put the rook on e1.
Why not e1? Yeah.
Because the black rook on e6 is a very dangerous attacking unit, and I think that when you're under pressure like this, you should try to eliminate the attackers. And I think even with a move like this, Paulsen might have survived, because the black position on the queen side is still quite weak, and if he can just eliminate the attacking black pieces, he could survive. But he didn't play rook e1. He lashed out on the queen's wing. Even after this...
Yes, even after, I mean,
White's position is still almost playable. Morphy took it off. Again you see the same concentration on not losing time. He doesn't bother, and his queenside structure is now a wreck. He's got 4 pawns, isolated and doubled, and they're a monstrous wreck, really. But he doesn't want to lose time. He doesn't want to have to defend against the threat of White pushing on the pawn to a5. He just wants to get his pieces out as quickly as possible.
But you'd think it'd still be very... I mean, why not even now? Rook to
e1. Yes, White in fact took the pawn back on a4, but again, the sensible move is rook to e1 to eliminate that dangerous piece. And the pawn on a4 can always be captured later on.
Yes, I knew an old ex-Lithuanian player used to always say, it won't run away.
It won't run away, that's right. White took the pawn, and Morphy developed his bishop. A dual-purpose move. First of all, he wants to bring the queen's rook into the game as quickly as possible, and secondly, he wants to defend the pawn on c6. And now this is really where I think Paulsen throws the game away by underestimating Morphy's tremendous powers of attack. What he should do now, quickly, is put the queen on a6, challenging that black queen on d3. And this was his last chance to stay in the game. And to a certain strange extent, it justifies White's play. And White's play looks rather amateurish by modern standards, but there was some point to it. And by playing the queen into a6, he would have kept on the board. But he didn't do that. He played the rook to a2 first, which is an unnecessary precaution. And now Morphy mobilises the final piece.
Now you see here, Ray, is where I think the average club player would already have been so nervous of how weak he is down there. To compound this, in effect, is what he's done, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. But it's on the king's side, on the right-hand side of the board, that the denouement is going to come. And now Paulsen plays this move. He finally gets the right idea. He challenges the black queen.
Too late again.
It's too late. The reason it's too late is truly astounding. And it's this next move. And so far, the play by Morphy has been efficient, well mobilised, flowing. And the play by Paulsen has had a few hiccups. It wouldn't say that by modern Grandmaster standards. But it's Morphy's next move that really catapults this game into the Super League. It's a move that would have bowled over all the contemporaries, especially with the black pieces playing such a decisive attack. And this is it. Watch carefully now, as black sacrifices the queen. Queen takes f3.
Yeah, it's scary.
And I categorise this as a $1 million PR move. I mean, if you want to make your reputation, if you want to become noticed by everybody,
you mean it's worth $1 million in building up his reputation?
Absolutely, that's what it is. And of course, White's got no choice at all. He has to take it off. And now Black's given up the queen. But in exchange, he's stripped away.
Terrible nakedness.
That's right. The White king is totally naked, and now the pieces, what's left of Black's army, swoops in for the final attack. First of all, check. There's no choice. Of course, he has to put the king in the corner. And now this bishop comes into h3, attacking the rook and threatening.
It's ever more and more horrible.
That's right. The rook has to move out of the way. And now it's kind of seesaw operation. The bishop comes into g2, check.
Why wouldn't he have gone to f1 there? Or it's g1, yes.
In this position?
Yeah.
Yes, I see. If he goes to g1, then Black can simply take the rook on g1 check, and then bring the other rook from e8 into e1.
Yes.
It's over very quickly then. So he put the rook on d1. The bishop came in here, check. The king went to g1, and now all this is forced. It's a horrible seesaw. Check, again from the rook.
Quite sadistic, actually.
That's right. The king has to go to f1. The seesaw starts again. Bishop check. The king can't go to the e-file. It has to go to g1. The bishop goes to h3, discovered check again, and the king is forced back into the corner, h1. And now the final attacking unit, bishop takes the pawn. And the fatal net's been woven. And the threat now is bishop g2 checkmate. White's got no choice. He has to start getting material back. Starting with his extra queen. Morphy took it off. Bishop takes. Rook takes back. So at least White's starting to beat off the attack a bit. But the final wave, in comes the black rook.
Well, the old saying, a gentleman would resign.
Yes.
You know, didn't he know already that he was...
He must have known he was up the creek, but he struggled on for a few moves. He played this, rather a pathetic move. And the black rook came here, clearly ganging up on the white pawn. And the last fling, d4. The bishop attacks the rook. But now, the coup de grace, bishop e3. And here Paulsen resigned. And the reason he resigned is that after bishop takes bishop, rook takes this pawn.
h2, yes.
Check. King goes across.
And that's the end of the story.
And rook g2. Total checkmate.
It's that capture with the queen which is so brilliant,
isn't it? Well, Paulsen was a Prussian playing in New York in the 1850s. An example of just bringing people together. Have you got any stories of this from South Africa?
Oh, South Africa's full of... I remember in my chess club, an extraordinary incident when we integrated the club, so black players could belong. Only one member refused to play because they were blacks, and there was an old Afrikaner. And he just wouldn't even come to the club because there were blacks there. And then after about 5 months, he wandered in one night and he said, I've just come to look, I haven't come to play. And then inevitably he started looking at some of the games. He asked the young black player why he'd moved that night there. And of course, inevitably, they started discussing it. They started playing through a few positions, and he ended up playing often with this chap.
Rejoining the human race.
That's right. And this young black player was a young schoolboy, Charlie Sorga, who later checkmated Hans Ree of the Netherlands, which is pretty rare in a simultaneous to be checkmated. You know. So, yeah, it did bring people together, and I think it always will.
It's a charming story. Well, thanks very much, Donald. Next week, we're going to look at the very brilliant game played at London 1883 between another Prussian, Johannes Zukertort, and the first English Grandmaster in our series, Joseph Henry Blackburn. Meanwhile, it's goodbye from Donald, goodbye from me, goodbye from the entire chess team. Join us next week.